Let's talk to Elliot Keck now, though, head of campaigns at Taxpayers Alliance. He wrote a very interesting piece yesterday, a thread, if you like, on Twitter about this new mansion tax that it looks like Rachel Reeves is thinking of bringing in to try and make some money. It could well be that it's going to be an exchange for a new council tax. It could well be that higher rate taxpayers are going to be forced to pay an awful lot more money for the purpose of for the likelihood of them owning a very expensive property, and they might have to spend an awful lot of money every single day, with lots of questions. Elliot's got the answers, we hope. Elliot, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Very interesting, this, isn't it? Because your exploration of it yesterday kind of answered all the questions that I had in a way, which is, you know, exactly how would this work? If they do away with council tax altogether and they only tax you on the value of your property, how would it work, for example, for renters?
Yeah, so there's quite a few proposals that are milling around. One is to replace stamp duty with an annual tax on the value of your property, and the other is to also replace council tax with a tax on the annual value of your property. That's sort of how council tax kind of already works at the moment. It's based on your valuation of your property in the early 1990s, and then it's put into bands. But what this would do would, you know, on the one hand, it would sort of simplify the system, but it would also mean a lot of people end up paying a lot more because you'd get rid of things like the single person discount. You'd end up charging this on properties that students are in. So for a lot of people, they're going to see council tax rises, particularly in the southeast. But it's the replacement of the stamp duty, which is looks like particularly troubling. It looks like it's going to be effectively a wealth tax, a charge on the value of your property over £500,000 every single year. And that can mean thousands of pounds in extra tax for the average family home.
Yeah, because in the end, stamp duty is only payable when you buy a property, right? But this theory would be that you might pay this on an annual basis, regardless of whether you've just bought it.
Yeah, and the really worrying thing is that there are a lot of people sitting on houses that have increased in value quite a lot. So actually, they're sort of what you call asset rich. They have a sort of nice home. They don't actually have much cash. And so if they're suddenly being charged a massive extra tax every single year, they don't actually have that money available. And, you know, when you look at what the government have done in other tax policies, there's an element of class war about it. And I think the government are looking at some of these middle classes, look at them with a bit of contempt and loathing. Yeah. And they want to try and force them out of these homes. They want to try and force them to hand over some of their wealth to the states.
Right. And so just to go back to my first question on rental property, how would it work if you're a landlord, for example? Would the landlord pay the tax and just then charge the renter? How would that go?
Yeah, so it's the owner of the property in every case that pays the tax, and they would then pass it on to whoever it is, whether it's the renter, normal renter, private renter, whether it's the student, whether it's the council paying through social housing rent, you know, whether it's the carer and single person. Yeah, so it's a landlord, but of course we all know that ends up being passed on in higher rent.
Well, exactly right. And of course, you're supposed to pay for your council tax for a bunch of services, right? So would that be broken down in a different way as well? Because it would mean that the council wouldn't be getting the money, but the HMRC would be getting it?
So under the proposals that have been floated, and there's a lot that we don't know about what exactly they're looking at, the tax on the first £500,000 of your house would go to the council, and the tax on the bit above £500,000 would go straight to government coffers. And I think, you know, that second bit, that's the bit where they're looking at what is essentially going to be a wealth tax in all but name.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it does seem as though they're literally, you know, sort of looking at every single thing. I mean, we were talking earlier in the show about this new betting tax that they want to put on horse racing and try and bring, you know, the 15% levy up to 21% to keep it sort of, you know, in check with various different gaming problems that they've got. But it's almost like every single thing, if it moves, tax it. You know, if it's already taxed, put the tax up. Try and, you know, squeeze a bit more out of it.
Yeah, and one part of that is they're trying desperately to gain a bit more revenue. But another part of it is actually they don't care about the revenue. They just want to tax behaviours that they don't approve of. So you think of owning a second home. They don't approve of that, so they're going to double your council tax. They don't approve of sending people to private schools, so they're going to tax that. So there's a whole load of behaviours that they don't care about raising more money from. They don't like the behaviour. They don't like gambling. They want to go after gamblers. But then there's a whole load of other taxes where they think, you know, there's a bit of wealth that they can tap into and try and squeeze taxpayers for.
So it's an ideological tax in a way, really, isn't it?
A lot of it's ideological, yeah, and a lot of it is just Rachel Reeves being one of the most greedy and avaricious chancellors I think we've ever had.
Yeah. I mean, where does it end? I mean, what are they going to find that they haven't taxed?
Well, I think the risk for the Labour government is that these proposals end up being a bit of a poll tax, and you end up seeing a revolt on the streets. And at some point, it will end, and it's going to end very, very messily. And
Yeah.
it could end with them being turfed out of power and Rachel Reeves being out of a job.
Well, that's what I hear an awful lot of, because people who have been paying taxes all their life are now saying to me things like, you know, not only am I getting taxed more, not only am I being punished for actually doing well, not only am I being, you know, punished for trying to start a new business or whatever, basically I'm now being taxed to pay for a load of migrants coming into the country. And that's the bit that's going to turn people off.
Yeah, exactly right. And migrants, of course, won't be paying these additional property taxes because they get their rent or their hotel room paid for by the taxpayer. But the taxpayer that is subsidising that is paying for that, is going to end up paying higher rent, higher mortgages, higher house prices, and all the rest of it as a result of these taxes.
Right, and that's what really, really cheeses people off. Great to talk to you, Elliot. Thank you very much indeed. Elliot Keck, the head of campaigns at Taxpayers Alliance.